Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. If you've ever thought, I kind of want to try a suction toy, but I have no idea where to start. Hi, this is for you. Lem from Nancy is the perfect first step. It's designed to feel safe, simple, and actually enjoyable to use. No confusion, no intimidation. You can start slow, explore what feels good, and stay in control the whole time. And because it's small, quiet, and super discreet, it literally looks like a lemon, it doesn't feel like this big, overwhelming thing. It just feels fun. So if you've been curious but hesitant, this is your sign. Go to hellonancy.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 25% off. Let me tell you about the most fun homework assignment I have ever given, Daily Magic Wand Time. It started with me doing a 21-day experiment to answer one question. What happens to stress, sleep, mood, and sexual satisfaction when I use the magic wand every day, versus when I have partnered sex, versus when I have no sexual activity at all? The results were honestly so fascinating that we turned it into a full-blown scientific study with over 1,000 participants. Now we have real data on how consistent solo pleasure can impact mental health and overall wellness, not just orgasms. Curious? Go to magicwandstudy.com and read what we found out. So you've had pleasurable sex. Yay! But then you get a yeast infection. It's painful, itchy, and a sign your vaginal microbiome could use some support. Happy V creates scientifically sound products to support vaginal, gut, and immune health. Their prebiotic and probiotic is formulated with 7 clinically studied probiotic strains at clinically effective dosages, plus a patented prebiotic to help good bacteria thrive. If you want to support your vaginal health from the inside out, head to happyv.com. Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off your first order, or up to 30% when you start a subscription. That's happyv.com. happyv as in vagina.com. I've been a sex educator for almost a decade, so I know lots about sexy products. Let me share my top 3 reasons I'm personally obsessed with Uberlube. 1, sex feels better while using it, period. 2, it's great for sensitive skin and it's recommended by leading doctors. 3, I don't need to reapply it often because a little goes a long way. Go to uberlube.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at checkout. Hello, and welcome back to Sex Ed with DB. I'm DB, your favorite sex educator and pleasure expert, and today we're diving into a question that is very relevant for a lot of people, especially folks raised in religious or more conservative environments. Here's the question. As a religious woman, I now see my values around sex and sexuality shifting. Is it reasonable to want to keep my non-traditional relationships hidden from my family? I want to explore my sexual desires without judgment. Whew! Yes, there is a lot in there. Thank you so much to the anonymous listener who submitted this. As a reminder, you can also submit anonymous questions at the link tree in our Instagram bio. If you scroll down in our link tree, it says Ask an Anonymous Sex Ed Question. You can feel free to put any and all questions in there, and I will maybe answer it on the show. So, in this question, we're talking about identity shifts, family dynamics, secrecy, desire, and this tension between who you've been taught to be and who you are becoming, right? This person is a religious woman, but her values really are changing. And so there's really like this internal struggle potentially in figuring out how to explore without like maybe like rubbing your family the wrong way, or how to, really investigate what your desires are, and not be judged by your family if you have non-traditional relationships that they're not going to like. So today's episode is not about telling you what to do, but it's giving you, dear listener, the tools to think through this in a way that feels aligned and actually supportive of you and your well-being in your relationships. Because pleasure isn't just about what happens inside the bedroom. It's also about how safe you feel being yourself with the people that you love. So let's get into it. So first, I want to normalize something right away. Your values are allowed to evolve and change and shift. A lot of people grow up with very clear messaging around sex, around what's right, what is wrong, acceptable, shameful, and those messages often come from religion, culture, family, or all three. But here's the thing. Values aren't static. They are shaped by our experience, education, our relationships, self-reflection, growth, you name it. So when you say that your values are shifting, that doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It means you're thinking critically about what actually feels true and good for you. And that can feel destabilizing because now you're holding two things at once. You're holding the values you were taught and the desires or beliefs that you're starting to develop. And that tension is where a lot of people get stuck. Now, let's get to the core of your question, which is it reasonable to keep non-traditional relationships hidden from my family? The short answer here is yes, it is reasonable. But I want to unpack it with you. There is a difference, an important difference, between privacy and secrecy, and that really matters. Privacy is, this is a part of my life that is just mine, and I choose who to share it with and who not to share it with. Whereas secrecy is, I am hiding this thing because I feel fear, shame, or risk if it is discovered. And now sometimes those do overlap, especially in families where there's judgment around sexuality, strict religious expectations, or where there could be real consequences, emotional, relational, financial, you name it. And wanting to protect yourself from judgment is not irrational, it's self-preservation. You are allowed to decide what your family knows, when they know it, and if they know it. Access to you is a privilege, not a right. But here's a part we cannot skip over. Keeping parts of your life hidden can also come with emotional weight. Things like feeling like you're living a double life, or anxiety about being found out, not being fully seen by people close to you, guilt or internalized shame. That doesn't mean you should disclose everything, but it does mean it's worth asking yourself, am I choosing privacy because it feels empowering or because I feel afraid? Do I have any spaces where I can be fully myself? What support systems exist outside of my family? What do my friend groups look like? What does my work look like? What kinds of other relationships do I have? Do I have a partner, etc.? Because exploration without any safe container can start to feel very isolating, and you deserve both exploration and support. Let's talk through your desire to explore. That is not something to shut down. That's something to understand and investigate. And sexual curiosity is not a moral or religious failure. It's human experience. And exploring your desires or your sexuality can look like a few things: learning about your body, trying a new relationship structure, questioning what intimacy means to you, using sex toys with your partner, unlearning shame-based messaging. But here's the key. Exploration works best when it is intentional and not reactive. So it's important to ask yourself, what actually excites me versus what feels like rebellion? What are my boundaries within these non-traditional dynamics? Do I feel respected and safe in these relationships? Because non-traditional doesn't automatically mean healthy or unhealthy. It just means different from what you were taught. And the goal isn't just to break the rules, it's to build something that actually works for you. So let me say this super clearly. You are not required to come out, confess, explain your sexuality to anyone before you're ready. Not your parents, not your community, not anyone else in your family, not anyone. Disclosure should be based on your safety, your readiness, and your desire to share, not guilt, not pressure, not obligation. And some people choose to share eventually, some don't. Both are valid. And it also really depends on what exactly you're wanting to share. This question says, your values around sex and sexuality are shifting and you want to keep your, quote, non-traditional relationships hidden from your family. So if you're talking about like opening your relationship, that's totally up to you whether or not you want to share that with your family. If you're talking about, polyamory and living a polyamorous lifestyle or kitchen table polyamory where your partners are, able to communicate and you want your family to know your partner's partners, your metamors, then, it is important just to think about like how much hiding are you going to be having to do in order to live your life authentically. So it is important to get to the specifics as to what exactly you mean by non-traditional relationships. But we can also apply this to other kinds of things. If there are certain desires that you have, certain things that you're interested in doing, your family can still know you and really, really know you, even if they don't know your sexual desires or your proclivities. And I think that's totally fine to keep those to yourself, or to keep those with your partner or close friends, or like a close cousin. You don't necessarily need to have everyone in your family know the deepest parts of you. If you are feeling torn between your faith and your sexuality, you are not alone. A lot of people find ways to reinterpret their faith, or connect with more inclusive communities, or redefine spirituality in a way that supports their whole self. I'm thinking back to an episode we did a few seasons ago now with Reverend Pleasure, and she is an amazing chaplain and really talks about how she balances her desires and sex ed content as well as her faith. And it's just a super important thing to be able to connect with religious leaders who do make you feel confident in your desires and in your relationship structures and in your sexuality, because we should be able to have our faith and engage with it without feeling judgment or shame or like we're doing something wrong. And this whole thing really isn't about abandoning your identity. It's about integrating it. It's about melding and meshing. You don't have to choose between being a sexual person and a values-driven person. You could just be both, and I'm sure you are both. So, is it reasonable to keep parts of your sexual life hidden from family? Yes, especially if it protects your emotional or physical safety, but also check in with yourself. Is it helping you feel more like yourself or less? Because the goal here isn't just freedom from judgment. It's building a life where your desires, your relationship structures, your values, and your sense of self actually all align. So take your time, be curious, build your support system along the way. If you are interested in sharing something with your family, you can always ask them what they think about the topic before you divulge anything about yourself, just to get a sense, a temperature check as to how they're feeling about polyamory, for example, or about opening a relationship. And if it feels really unsafe, you don't have to share that with them. That is a privilege to get to know you on a level that they deserve, and not everyone's privy to that privilege. If this episode resonated with you, send it to a friend who might be navigating the same thing, because trust me, we all are going through very similar issues. And thank you again so much for writing this question in. I am endlessly appreciative of folks who are open to sharing their stories, sharing their experiences, especially when it's anonymous. So if you're interested in sharing your story, asking a sex ed question, go to our show notes and go to our Linktree in our Instagram bio. It's the same link to ask an anonymous sex ed question, and I hope to get to answer it on the show. Thank you so much for listening. Love y'all. Talk to you next week.